folks, can we just have an indication if you can see the screen now? See our screen? It should say, it should say CloudShare in the Australian curriculum.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, we can see. We can.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks. So we're going to make a start, and firstly, can I welcome along with us, and we'll see if we can just show our view here. There we are. So I'll just introduce a few of us here. On my right, we've got Peter Kelleher, who's the team leader for the Australian curriculum implementation here at CEO Sydney.
Thank you.
To his left is Catherine Bates, one of the, what's your official title, Catherine?
Project officer.
Project officer. Well, I'm a project officer too, so that's good, so we'll share that. To my left is Joanna Stella, also a project officer for the Australian curriculum. And that absent chair is where Alma Leroux, our CloudShare Support Officer, would normally be sitting. Here we go. We can see all of the participants now, which is fantastic. Okay. So Alma's just gone. In fact, I think she's just fixed our little presentation problem, so that's fantastic. And can I also mention Christine Majali, who's unfortunately away ill today, and you may have seen her picture on the slides if you've accessed the slides already. Just to start things off, this session is available for you to use as teacher-identified professional learning hours with the New South Wales Institute of Teachers. So take advantage of that and book this hour or so as a part of your New South Wales Institute of Teachers PD registrations. This presentation that we're looking at today, which I emailed out to everybody, it was in the email that was sent out earlier today. You can get to that, if you haven't got that in front of you now, you can get to it by simply typing that address in your browser. So you go up to your Chrome browser or whatever browser you're in, just enter that address and you'll come to this presentation. Please note that the code there, 9FM37K, is case sensitive, so you'll need to enter that exactly as you see it. Could I also welcome Anna-Louise, if you can give us a wave, Anna-Louise Jones from I was going to say De La Salle, but no, from St Clare's Waverley, who's also going to be presenting with us on the today. So we're all going to have a bit of a go at this. We're all going to have a bit of a presentation, so I'm going to be throwing to different people as we go through. And the first person I'm going to ask to talk is Peter Kelleher. So over to you, Pete.
Thank you, Greg, and good afternoon, everyone. In one sense, I'm presuming that in one way or another, everyone has in some way been to and perhaps used the CEO website for the Board of Studies syllabus for the implementation of the Australian curriculum. As you probably know, we very much live and work in the Google CloudShare space. So everything we do, the construction of the site, use of docs, use of presentation, is all entirely within Google CloudShare. And the very good reason that we do that, besides its obvious availability, is that whole idea of building collaboration. Greg, could you just click on the collaboration link there? Thanks. So you've probably seen several of these Google Docs, and the platform that we've got here provides so many opportunities for people to share ideas, to collaborate in creating the documents. And I just put forward I think one of the challenges with Google Docs, and after a document like this is created, is exactly what we do with it. So as we develop further modules, we're very much encouraging people to think about, I guess, the longevity of Google Docs and how people can access them on an ongoing basis, and perhaps in some instances to physically display them as well as we start to unpack the new syllabus. Just for everyone's information, the Australian curriculum site, the CEO Sydney site, is now actually a public site. So all of it, which actually in the background, it's actually 4 different sites, but of course appears in your view as one site. And as Greg's got up on screen there, now one central aspect of it is as a repository of resources. And I'd very much emphasise here, we're in the pretty early days here of building up resources. Later in the presentation, we might return and start to consider the question of sharing and collaboration in or on best practice. So the site is now public, and why do we do that? Because there's been several congregational independent schools who have asked for access. So the easiest way to do that was to make the site public. In your view of the site, you're not seeing any difference. In our view, and this is an interesting general principle that we're starting to introduce within CEO offices, and that is that the documents all now reside in a generic drive. So whilst various documents were created by different team members and others, all documents now live in a generic drive, and that gives us very clear ownership and also very clear access to those documents. As I mentioned earlier, where we're heading towards, and it's the last point in the slide there, and that is heading towards sharing, and whether best practice is the term, I'm not entirely sure, but successes, challenges, as well as resources. And that's all very much in the sphere that the implementation of the new Board of Studies syllabus for the Australian curriculum is very much an ongoing operation. So whilst in one view we might have sort of come to the end of one phase of the implementation, there's several years' work still to go to fully implement. And to a certain extent, it's watch this space, but it's certainly a flag there that there's a lot more that's going to be coming along. So that's sort of introductory comments, Greg.
Okay, thanks, Pete. What I was going to talk about was, I guess, focusing in on some of the key benefits that I know the Australian curriculum team have seen, we've seen, and as Alma and Anna-Louise will share with you, they've seen in their schools in terms of using CloudShare with the Australian curriculum. So I want to cover quickly 4 areas. The first is Google Drive. So this is access to documents anywhere, anytime, and I should say any device as well. Google Drive works across different platforms as a central repository for your documents. You won't lose work there because it's always stored on Google servers and backed up. It doesn't matter whether your computer crashes, Google Docs saves as you go, so you don't lose work. And of course, as Peter was mentioning, you know, one of the key benefits we see around Google Drive and the whole Google CloudShare platform is the ability to share resources. So we would encourage schools to, where possible, use Google Drive, not just to store work, but also as a way of producing work in terms of Google Docs. And that's, of course, what the Australian curriculum team has done with their sites and docs. Yeah? That's right? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Second thing is Program Builder. So Alma is going to give us a demonstration shortly about how to use Program Builder in order to take the benefits that Program Builder offers us when we're creating a program and put that into the CloudShare environment. So I'm not going to steal her thunder. She's going to show that off in a few minutes. Just to point out, though, that obviously you can take what's in Program Builder, export it into the Google Docs, Google Drive environment. You can preserve formatting, and I think Anna-Louise will show us that a little later on. And you can also integrate to other tools like Scootle. So we see that as a really nice fit in terms of Google Drive, Google Docs, and Program Builder. They seem to work really nicely together. The third thing I wanted to mention was around about talking about working together around this apps integration. That is one of the key things around the whole CloudShare Google environment, is that the applications work together. For instance, and I hope Anna-Louise, you'll talk about this shortly, is the idea of that you can mark up a program that you're putting together using comments, and those comments can be automatically emailed to the people relevant to those comments. That's a fantastic facility when you're trying to work collaboratively on a document. And of course, you've got the other apps that work together, like Sites and YouTube, Google Drive and Google Sites. Another one that I've just seen recently is the idea of using Google+. So I quickly want to show you this. I've got Google+ here on my screen, and I've just done a quick search on the Australian curriculum, and I've come up with a whole range of resources that people have been putting up around the Australian curriculum. And if you were going to remember one person, it's a bit hard to remember sometimes, but one person who can, I think, is producing some or tapped into a number of great resources around the Australian curriculum. It's a fellow called Roby Jayawardena. Now, Roby is, I guess he's a sort of a combination of Doug Ashley, our director, myself, Peter Kelleher, Peter Sidgreaves. He's a combination of all these people up in the Townsville diocese. And Roby's constantly working with schools around the Australian curriculum, and he's constantly putting things out on Google+. So I'd encourage you, firstly, if you aren't signed up with Google+, do it today, do it tonight when you get home. It's easy to do. You simply go to your email, and then in the top left-hand corner it'll say +YOU. You just click that and follow the instructions. And when you're on Google+, do a search for Roby. Just type in ROBIE, and his name will probably pop up, Roby Jayawardena. We might add him to the slides, actually. I'll add him to the slides as well.
So Greg, is Google Plus sort of Google's answer to Twitter?
It's a kind of a combination of Facebook and Twitter. So you can follow people, you can post information. The information can be multimedia, videos, images, that sort of thing. It's a little bit like Google's answer to, a combination of Facebook and Twitter. I like that analogy. So back to what I was just mentioning before. I'd encourage you to explore the way that the apps integrate. The other thing that I'd encourage you to explore as well is the web app store. So you're probably familiar with some of the basic Google apps, Google Drive, Gmail, Calendar, that sort of thing. But did you know that there's hundreds, in fact there's thousands of other apps that you can connect into? So anyone who's got an iPhone or even an Android phone is familiar with the idea of apps, yeah? Well, there's lots and lots of apps that you can use with CloudShare, and they're available in the web store. How do you get to the web store? It's pretty easy. You simply make a new tab in your Chrome browser, and down the bottom right-hand corner, there's a link to the web store. See that? Right? I might zoom in a little bit so you can see that. Down the bottom there, the web store. You click on where it says web store, and you'll go across to a whole range of different apps. Some are already recommended for us in sid.catholic.edu.au. Tools like mind mapping software. So if I type in mind, hit return, you can see I've come up with a whole range of different tools. There's MindMeister, for instance. It's free, and just by clicking the plus button here, I can add it into Chrome, and it's there for me to use, a free mind mapping tool. Okay? So the takeaway here for you is don't think in CloudShare that you're just limited to the apps like YouTube, Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Sites, etc. You've got access to thousands of other apps via the web store. Okay, I'm going to pass over now to Joanna, who's, thank you, there's Roby Jayawardena, somebody's popped that slide in. Thank you very much. So, Alma, you're building that at the moment, are you, Alma?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to pass over to Joanna now, Joanna Stella, who's going to talk about some of the benefits of using CloudShare with the Australian curriculum in terms of collaboration. The camera, right, yes, thank you. So we'll just pan over so that we can see Joanna. There you go.
Thanks, Greg, and hi everyone. I just wanted to just quickly talk about one of the benefits of CloudShare that I think is very significant, and that's the idea of collaboration. And as Peter said earlier, all the Australian curriculum modules are based on the Google platform that allow for collaboration. The knowledge building and the ability to create resources collaboratively is one of the greatest benefits. Now, just one of the, want to go into one of the examples.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit one.
Just a Holy Spirit council. This is one of the strategies that was included in Module 3 around the learning across the curriculum areas. And it was one of the strategies within the module. So the staff at Holy Spirit engaged with this module, and each group then collaboratively looked at each of the LACs, the learning across the curriculum areas, did some research and added to this presentation. And if you keep scrolling down, the staff found it really helpful that they were able to gather resources and put them into one presentation that was accessible to everyone. They worked on it during the module, but what Susan Bombarderi, who's led the literacy coordinator, who's led this learning at her school, said that what staff are doing is going back to this document every now and then, this presentation, and adding things as they find it. So it's a resource that's being created continually that people can refer to. And you may, if we just go back to this slide, you may not see it, but just to quote Susan, she says, using CloudShare to facilitate the Australian Curriculum Professional Learning modules has allowed learning to take place on 2 platforms. Through this process, we have been able to develop our knowledge and understandings of the new curriculum while developing the skills and confidence with using CloudShare. And I think that sums that up really nicely. The other benefit I wanted to quickly talk about is the fact that programs can be built collaboratively through the Google platform. Alma's going to, as Greg said, going to be talking about Program Builder and programming later on, so I'm not going to talk about that, but I just wanted to bring up 2 things, read the benefits. Firstly, obviously that teachers can begin writing a program and they don't need to be physically in the same room at the same time to collaborate on a document. Teachers can go away, reflect, and then come back and add to that, and there's the document is always up to date. So there's no need for, I'll do a little bit and then resend the latest version. So it's live, accessible all the time. The other benefit is what Greg's already alluded to, is the comments on the side. So you'll see here, this is a program from Clancy College, West Hoxton, and the acting eLearning coordinator Lauren Batty sent this through and said, you can see on the side there that teachers, advisors from the southern region have commented, and the program was able to be amended, edited, improved with the collaboration from all these other people. And just to quote Lauren, she says, we use the comments application in the document to provide feedback and questions and use this to amend the program. We found the live nature of Google useful for our collaboration beyond the work environment. It's so much easier than saving and resending the file. And just to finish off there, we all know that collaboration is important, but the time factor is always an issue. Google platform takes that time factor away. We can collaborate in a document. We don't have to be in the same place at the same time. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Joanna. All right, so the next thing we want to do is a little bit of a demo that Alma's going to do for us. So Alma is going to talk a little bit about using Program Builder and a workflow that goes with that. So, and again, press again. No, you need to press again. That's it. And give that a second. No, that's all right. Just give it a second. We're just changing over screens. There it is. Beautiful.
To start off, there's just to mention Greg Swanson's work around integrating border studies and Program Builder.
Yeah.
If you click on this Mac ICT slide deck, it's actually a presentation that Greg has allowed us to share with everybody. To start the focus around Program Builder, just go to slide 8, and you can follow through to slide 16 to follow all the steps, well, most of the steps that I'm going to be covering in the demonstration in a minute. Basically, apologies, there's a bit of sound from the back. Basically, we're starting by logging into Program Builder. I've actually logged in before the session started, and to access that link from Greg's presentation, this one on the bottom, you will actually be asked to log in through CNA, so please make sure that you're logged in to that, and also Scoodle, If you're not sure about the links, just let us know and we will pop those in the presentation or email them through. Once you're logged into both of those, go back to the Board of Studies Program Builder link and you'll be automatically directed to your space. So what you can do in Program Builder is work or you're basically starting work on your own, and this is why we're working with Google Docs in terms of bringing the collaboration aspect into the picture. We're starting on our own because the Program Builder allows you to actually start your programs from scratch and use elements that are actually included here, particularly important, just clicking on outcomes and importing them, and aspects of the programs are there. So I've just clicked on the new program. You can give your program a name, so I'll just call it Arrival. Actually, that was one of the units we used. Just making up a name for the time being. You can choose your stage, and obviously the year. What I really like is the sample 10-week term, so you can choose that, enter a short description for your program. So I'll just copy and paste one I prepared earlier. It's not very extensive. And then you can choose either a single or a multi scope and sequence. The multi-scope and sequence is great if you're working on a cross-curricular aspect, so you can include elements of the English outcomes or the science and technology or the history outcomes. So I'll just choose the single one for the purpose of the presentation and go down to next. You can type your unit name here. You can call it drawing, even though the arts are actually not part of the curriculum. Doesn't mean you can't draw in English. You can choose your weeks. What I've discovered is that you can't, once you hit 20 weeks, for example, it will tell you that you're not able to do that, and the way around that is just to say, perhaps if you've got a long unit that runs over more than 10 weeks, because that's the maximum, just call it Part A and Part B and just split it into weeks, say for example 10 here, and we'll just add that one. Because I can't go past 10, I can add a new unit and call it painting. And that one can go for 5 weeks, and I can add that second unit in, and so on. So you can see how you can actually build a whole program for year 7 for each unit that you teach for that year. And then we'll go to step 3. I'm doing a kind of a quick job. So here you can see your units by term and by week. If you like that, you can save it or you can edit. We'll just save, and it brings them up in this section. Now, what you can do, you can edit a little bit here by yourself, or we're talking about sharing with other people. We'd like to export this file to a Google Doc. Now, before I do that, I'll just mention, because that's how the slide runs on our presentation here. So just before I go into the export and show you what to do with Word and Google Docs, you can actually share this presentation with anybody just by entering their email and adding them on. You can't, I believe there is a limit on how many people you can share with in terms of emails.
I'm not sure what it is, but there is
10 email addresses at a time. So if you're copying and pasting, but it is not likely that you'll be copying and pasting to 30 people at a time. Generally, just start small.
And Alma, of course, this sharing is not like sharing in Google Docs.
That's
you
right.
can't collaborate on the program in Program Builder.
So what that will do is basically just bring up any shared or any samples. So in your documents on Program Builder, it will just bring up anything that's been shared with you, any programs that other people have shared or programs that you have shared with others, and also perhaps templates that you have saved. So what we'll do is go back to our units. I just wish there was a back button as well. And we can go into that drawing unit, and I can choose to export this as a unit.
So Alma, this is where you're exporting as a Word document, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was in a program before, apologies. So if you are in the program, that basically brings up a bit of a scope and sequence. And I've done this one previously, and I'll show you what it looks like just to save on time. So I'll demonstrate on the unit one for this aspect here. So you can copy, share, or change your template and change any of these elements. So in the scope and sequence summary, you might like to start something. So this term, this semester, etc. So that will...
Elma, I have a question.
Yes.
Once you actually export it and you work on it collaboratively in Google, can you import that back into Program Builder?
Not to my knowledge, no, because Program Builder, it's not designed that way. It's a shame, yeah.
Good question.
But that possibly could be something that we ask as a question, as a request, and they might build that in the future into the website, because it would be a really great feature, because particularly if you want to share finished programs.
And just one other question, Elma. Before you export it, would you select your outcomes perhaps that
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Use that facility.
Yep. So you can actually, I did one a little bit earlier, you can go down to outcomes. So you can see that some of these fields are already preset for you. You can edit those. You can add your own title, but it's a little bit hard to picture what this might look like until you export. So it's good practice to export, have a little play, go back into Program Builder. Potentially for some of those teachers who really love to concentrate on working on their program on their own to start with, they can nut out some of those core aspects that they would like to include, perhaps coordinators.
This girl drinks that much water. I don't think they realise.
Do that. But you can, in the outcomes section box, you can just go to add outcomes, and you can add outcomes from any stage, any course, and perhaps which opens it up to project-based learning and cross-curricular aspects, which I really like, and it's much more accessible than physically going into each syllabus document. So that's one aspect that I like about it. So you can have a look at all the stage 4 outcomes, choose the one that applies that you want to cover, and add it, and it will automatically add that for you. I don't have time to fill in a lot of this content, but you can see that even evaluation is there. So now we're going to export this. It says you haven't saved your work. I'll just say don't save, just export. And I'm going to plonk this on the desktop and say save, and it will say would you like to replace? Yes, because I tested this earlier yesterday. So now you can see that it's downloading and exporting as a Word document. So now I can go back into Google Drive. You can have your Program Builder or your KLA folders as programs, and hit the upload button, hit files, or you can simply drag it in from the desktop, and you can import that program. So the one that's sitting there is the unit, and I did that for a specific reason. Make sure that your conversion is on, so that the program is actually converting. You can see here that it's a Word document with a big W. If it comes into your drive and it's still sitting there as Word, you can still convert it from Drive, and that's pretty easy. We can show you that later. And just click on that document, and you can see that it loads. Oh, this is the unit as well. Just click on this one. I want to show you a couple of different things. So this is the program version. It imports quite well. Everything looks like it's in place. All of those fields are there, and you can now customize and share by clicking the lock share item, and I can just share this with Greg, and Greg can edit, and I can give him a message to say, please help me work on this program together, and done. What happens when you do, this is the one that just to flag, so don't worry when this happens. When you import a unit of work, it doesn't actually, it doesn't look quite good, because what happens is that Google doesn't tend to deal with merging of cells very easily. So what you might be tempted to do is to highlight and hit merge cells. So if you right click as you would in Word, there's actually no merge cells option. So the way I've gotten around that is by, so you can copy your title you can actually delete this entire row and just insert your title above. Just now having a little think about that. And here, as you can see, what I've done is in a file like this, I've just deleted any rows like I just did before and inserted a new table. So if you need a new row, you'll have to work with mini tables. So you can choose to have them in few columns, one column, it's up to you. The spacing, to minimize the spacing, the trick is to hit the font size and just say 6, that's the smallest size you'll be able to get. And you can also remove the space before and after the paragraph, which does make it that little bit smaller. And then if you want to insert any other tables inside here, like I did, so in Visual Arts, if this was in the syllabus, I would insert a table to specify the 4 frames that we cover. This is just a mini table inside a table. So what you would do is just click inside your newly created table and just insert a new table. And that gives you another option, so you can enter that same information and do a little bit more customizing. You can get rid of these borders. This is just to help a little bit. You can just say 0, and that can get rid of that so that you can still have your text and have it looking a little bit more friendly. You can copy and paste some of those elements from the site or from the documents that Catherine will talk about in a little bit, and identify identifiers of aspects of the curriculum that you wish to cover. So that's kind of that in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alma. I guess
conscious of time.
Yeah, we're just a bit conscious of time because we did have a late start. What I might do is throw it back there to any questions. So does anyone? I realise that Alma went through that process pretty quickly. You probably didn't follow everything in terms of manipulating tables. The good news is that this session is being recorded, so that you'll be able to go and watch the video and watch what Alma did. Go back and watch what Alma did in terms of manipulating videos, you know, that little trick about changing the font size and that sort of thing.
And please email me if you have any questions, because there's quite a lot more that you can do. I've just given you a link to some templates in Drive. If anyone's made a template you can that you want to use, you can do that. But it is ideal that you start in Program Builder and design your own units and then share them with people you work with.
I want to now throw over to Anna-Louise Jones from, we've got De La Salle there, we better change that. That should be St Clare's, right?
The program from De La Salle.
Okay. So that should be St Clare's, right?
Well, I'm at St Clare's now, but the English program's from De La Salle.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah, sorry. I'll leave that there. Okay. So Anna, if you could present your screen, that would be great. What I'll do, is I'll unpresent my screen. There we go. And we're just going to ask Anna to present her screen now.
Okay, is that working?
That's brilliant.
Fantastic. Okay, I started just purely on Google Docs, basically because of the accessibility and the abilities to be able to share this with my staff. These programs, for me, it was a real problem having everyone on different versions of programs. So I felt that they would download things, change them, and people were not always using the same version of the program. So I wanted to have a common space where everyone knew the program. Up on that space was the current program. So these programs were embedded in a faculty Google site where teachers were able to basically work from there. We started from a backwards mapping perspective and started off with the assessment task. This I found really, really useful for a number of different reasons. And the other thing that I wanted to really talk about was, and I'll just skip down here, Basically, I think programs, it's really important that we look at the context of the school. And for English at De La Salle at Caringbah, we had all mixed ability classes, and it was really important that we had programs that reflected the differentiation that was occurring in the classrooms. So I needed a structure that demonstrated that differentiation and had those learning resources, you know, really split up so that it was really clear to teachers where that sat on the program. So we've got our structured core and extension, which starts off in the teaching and learning strategies, and that also links to some of the assessment for, as, and of learning. Okay, just going back up the top as well, I know the comment function has been spoken about a number of times today, but it was something that we found really beneficial, and it wasn't just collaborating within the school. Being a 7 to 10 school, we did our scope and sequence with the senior college down at Cronulla, because basically we really wanted that learning continuum to be demonstrated from 7 to 10 and then through to 12. And, you know, forward planning, hopefully bringing the primary schools to do that further. So these comments were not only being built on by people within the school, but it was also people from the senior college as well as other colleagues from the southern region. So I think that that model of really evaluating the process, reflecting on the process, and then being able to action that was something that we really found useful. And also the ability to then just, you know, email off things quite quickly from this document, email collaborators, notify them of changes and things like that. The other thing that I found that I really wanted and that was important for my staff to have within the program were links back to the syllabus. I think it's really important to look at the syllabus holistically, as well as, and you know, to really understand that these outcomes are not taught in isolation. And so it was really important that people were continuously going back to the syllabus and looking at that. So I wanted to make that as easy as possible. So those links back to the syllabus in, you know, different areas, the outcomes of content, the different content statements. It was important that people could easily access that. They didn't have to go and you know, do a search in Google for it. They could just connect to that straight away. I know I'm moving quite quickly, but the other thing that is extremely beneficial using Google Docs for programming is definitely the ability to be able to link in their teaching and learning resources. So I'll just click on one here. So for example, we've got a technical language, meta-language sheet. So all staff know that when they click on that, it takes them straight to that resource when it eventually loads, and then they're able to embed that in a site, make a copy of it, email it, share it with their students. So there's a whole range of, it's just making it really accessible, and that everything that they need, or anything that you need for that program, is all in the one spot. And that's something that I think is, you know, so beneficial with Google that, you know, we haven't really had before in terms of being able to connect all of this together. And also links to other resources, that links to other websites, YouTube clips and things like that. I think that's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about, but basically the ability to collaborate, the next step for this would have been to embed a link to a registration form. So that was probably the next thing. And if you look at that template, there's quite a lot of comments down the side where we've said, okay, well, this I think will work really well, but moving forward, these are things that we'd like to see further. So I think that constant reflection of your teaching practice is what can really be reflected, and it's instant. So I feel sometimes like doing a registration at the end of the term, it's just not as effective as quickly. We've got a program there, write a comment, did this today, didn't work at all, you might have luck with your class with this, or, you know, next time I'd actually probably split this activity. And then when you look at the program at the end, it's really easy to action those things. And if you've got it embedded on a Google site, you've also got the comment feature on the bottom of the page where you can do that as well. And I know that at DLSL at Caringbah that the staff found that really beneficial, rather than having to think at the end of the term what worked well and what didn't at the beginning of the term, or even worse at the end of the semester. So that's just, that's pretty much my program in a nutshell. In terms of it being used as a template, feel free to make copies, share it, delete the content out and use it. It worked well in the context of DELA, and if you think it's something that would work well in your schools, then feel free to share it on, because it's available. Okay, that's about it.
Anna-Louise, thank you so much for that. And open to questions if anybody wants to ask Anna-Louise about her program, or the process she went through, or any other questions related to that. Anna-Louise, while people are thinking about that, I might ask you just to stop sharing your presentation.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. See if we can get that back on. There we go, fantastic. And I'll just share mine now. And there we go, fantastic. Given that we started 10 minutes later, we might go through a little bit longer, maybe an extra 5 minutes, so that we get everyone in. In fact, what I might do is given that this is sort of mechanical stuff, and I think your stuff is probably more about directly related to the Australian curriculum, we might come back to this, and instead we might talk a little bit about the BOS site, and also Catherine can talk a little bit about some of the resources there. So, Peter, I might throw it to you just to talk a little bit about this.
Okay, I'm obviously pretending to be Christine at this point, and certainly the picture is much better than if it was a picture of my good self. The main point of this, if you want to click on the site there, Greg, the main point of this was about navigation and use of Google Docs within the site. So I've just linked that to one particular learning sequence, which is in 6.4, and it just highlights there the use of a presentation. And often within these learning sequences, we've used presentations not only as put information out there sort of tools, but also as gathering tools as well. And a lot of the feedback suggests that that's a very powerful tool that people can actually contribute to slides, as we alluded to earlier, and certainly build up the knowledge that way. Just one little technical thing, if you could scroll down there, Greg.
Okay, yeah.
Just coming back down to 6.4. One of the little challenges of implementing Google Docs has been an understanding of how they are actually situated on the website. So all of those documents on the website, all the Google Docs, are set to view only. Therefore, to actually utilise them, people in schools simply have to make a copy. And as we sort of move through the modules, and what we think is happening is that other people are getting responsibility for leading certain modules, we're getting a lot of emails about sharing a particular Google Doc, but it's quite simply a matter, as Greg's doing there, of making a copy and then putting in a name for your local school situation, and then you are able to have full editing rights.
What's this document called again?
6.4.
6.4, and then share it with staff for use locally. Because obviously, if it wasn't sent to view only, the potential was that thousands of people could have been writing on the one Google Doc, which would have been an interesting scenario, but may have resulted in some sort of epic chaos. So that's just a very simple procedure, and probably in terms of people using Google Sites and using Google Docs in creating their own learning, it's probably a pretty good principle to follow as well.
while you were speaking there, Peter, Catherine whispered in my ear to show everyone, just to make sure that you know, how to share that document once you've made a copy of it. So what I'll do that very quickly. So I'm going to make a copy, my own copy of that document. And what's going to happen is that's going to bring that up in a new tab. So here I have my own copy of this. Imagine I'm at Dillasol Caringbah. And of course, if I want to now share that with others, click the big blue share button, and now I can share that along with those people that I'm collaborating with, like Peter Kelleher, for instance, and maybe Catherine, etc. So it's a pretty straightforward process, and I'd go ahead and share and save. I won't notify you via an email. And of course, once you do that, that document will appear in their shared with me. So when they go to their Google Drive and click shared with me, if I was Peter here, he would see that document pop up there. There's the document that Alma shared with me earlier. So that's a pretty fundamental thing around sharing. Important to know how that works. And if you're not sure about that, then you need to have a look at some of the resources actually that are on the slide back here that talk about more help around using Google Drive, like the Google Guru TV site, which will help you to learn how to share things like that. So, Pete, was there something else you wanted to
that was the
point out?
That was the main point.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we'll move on to Catherine.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. I just wanted to, we wanted to really point out that on the site there's a number of resources that supported and are additional to the resources that were within the 2-hour module. And at your site of learning, you may have been used to using a number of documents from the site, but not actually accessing the site as is. So, as you know, the site now has gone public, so if you could just access the site from there. And some of you may be familiar with the site, so apologies if you are, but I just wanted to go through how to access these additional resources. When you actually log into Google, you'll open it to the opening page, and on the opening page there you'll see there's the professional learning modules, additional information and communication that you can access, and on the right there's a button there that says resources. So if you click into that center there for me, Greg,
yeah.
And that takes you to another page, and you'll see the tabs along the top support the modules that have been presented. So I'm thinking that most of you will have done the modules 1 to 3, and those resources supporting there. If you select on the general capabilities there, Greg, you can see that there are a number of resources within that general capabilities area that you can access for your own personal learning or to familiarise yourself again with those elements. Or as it is, you can go to the assessment, the programming, and the subject specific. I'm just going to take you to the subject specific in the first one, which is the drop bar opened at the English K to 6. And it's coming up. And you can see there are a number of resources there available. The benefit of working in the Google environment is that those links are live and you can copy and paste them into your program and find areas that support your programming. If you could just scroll up a little bit there, Greg, to the one that's the Asia Literacy Education Foundation, and just select that for me. Thank you. That takes you to a number of sites there that you can see goes from Foundation to Year 10, and it supports your work in collaboration on differentiation, because you can work across your stage or you can work on presenting different resources for different groups in your classroom there. If you just go back to another resource there, Greg, so just select out of there. Mm-hmm. And many of you may be aware of this resource, but if you just go to the Australian screen, the benefit of using the Google is you can use this live and then access these film clips without having to download and save them. They are live at the time, so as long as you have the link in your program, you're able to access these resources straight up. If you just go to the selection there, the education, where we were.
Yeah.
Just wanted to explain a little bit about this site. I just love it. Just go to the education there. Gives you a number of categories to work with, and particularly when we're in the primary section, there's an area where we have to look at different types of texts, and film and multimedia are part of those types of text. This provides an enormous amount of resources around conceptual framework and big ideas that support that different type of text. So I just wanted to make you aware of those resources that are available that you can now access. If you scroll down, then I don't want to seem primary centric, so I apologise, but just because of time limitations, I'm only going into this one. There's also a fantastic one on literary devices, so the new area of grammar and vocabulary in the English syllabus. This provides you with a list of the literary devices and supports your professional learning around these particular elements. We wanted to highlight for you is that the benefit of using Google Site is it's live and it's growing. So we seek out there's some fantastic resources that schools are using that may not be on the site and listed here, and we would like to encourage you to then email us those resources so that we can add them to the site and make this a growing learning community for all of us. So you can access that by going to the email address. So if you go into the resources page.
One page, yep.
And there's an email address there. We did have the button live so that you clicked on that and took you to an email address, but it went to Outlook. And so if you're not actually enrolled, signed up for that can cause problems. But you just copy the email address there and email us with any resources you feel that would be beneficial for the wider learning community, and we can add them to that site. And that's the benefit of the Google platform for us there. So that's really what I wanted to share with you and to encourage you to check out those resources, and we're very interested to have feedback on how you feel you've implemented them and what you've been doing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Catherine. All right, folks, well, I'm going to spend about 5 or 10 minutes just going through this idea of setting up your folders in Drive, some stuff around permissions, this idea of a resource account, and just some of the other extra resources. As I said, if you need to go, that's fine. So I'm just going to go to my Google Drive. What I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about setting up folders. So you can see, I'll just zoom in, you can see on my drive here, I've got a folder called Australian Curriculum. I'm going to open that folder by clicking the little left-hand side here, the little down-pointing arrow. I'll zoom in on that even more so you can see that. It's a little down-pointing arrow that basically shows me if there's any other folders inside that. And there's a folder called Kappa KLA 2013. So I just want to show you that I've got a structure set up within this folder where I've got various folders for the Kappa subject area, or the Kappa KLA. And you'll notice at the moment that they've got each folder has a little person on it, right? Which means that it's currently shared. And I'll talk about sharing in a second. But I guess the takeaway for you here is that you can set up a folder structure. How do I make a new folder? Well, it's pretty easy. If I want to add another folder here, I simply go to Create, Folder, give the folder a name, so say PDM, Create and Share, and that pops that folder underneath the one that was highlighted in red. So you can pretty easily go ahead and make yourself folders. I'm just going to delete that one just by clicking on it and then hitting Remove. Okay? So to make yourself a folder structure, it's very straightforward. Simply make folders within folders using the big red Create button. And as you can see, I've got a whole structure here around Kappa. There's a Visual Arts folder inside that. Inside that, I've got another one called Year 7 Visual Arts. And inside that, I've got various other folders around programs and registers and assessments. Just zoom out a little bit so you can see the full view of that. So I can get another look at that on the right-hand side here. You can see there's the folders which are within there, and there's that Year 7 Visual Arts folder that I'm looking at in there. Okay, so that's your folders within folder structure. So one of the things that comes up when you start to set up folders is that you want to share them with people, right? You want to share them and you want to give other people access to a folder. So to do that, or how do you go ahead and do that? Well, anytime somebody shares a folder with you, you've got the option to add it to your drive. So what we might do here, Alma, is I might share this with you, and Alma's going to demonstrate how that works. So I'm going to go back to the folders. I'm going to point and click on that Kappa folder here in the top right-hand corner, left-hand corner. If I hover over that folder, you can see I get a little down-pointing arrow. I can click that down-pointing arrow, and that will allow me to share the folder. So I'm going to hit Share. And when I do that, I get the option to share that. You'll notice that at the moment, anyone who's in CEO Sydney Schools who has the link to this folder can view it. But what I want to do is I want to share this directly with Alma. So I'm going to click where it says invite people. I'm going to type in Alma's email address or just her name. And instead of asking her to be an editor, I'm going to ask her to be a viewer. I'm going to tell her she's a viewer. Right? So I'm going to set Alma up as a viewer of that top level folder, share and save. And then done. So you can see that now, here, she's got access not just to this top level folder and all these folders underneath, but she'll get access to the whole folder structure. Okay? We'll give her access to the whole folder structure as a viewer. That is, she can only see what's in there. She can't change anything. All right? She can't, for instance, delete a folder or move it or rename it.
Can she copy it?
She can make a copy of it, yes. But we don't necessarily want her to do that. You don't need to do that in this case because you've got access to it. That's a good question. All right, so I'm going to just ask Alma to now bring up her screen. So Alma, do you want to just press twice on your puck there? That's it.
Oh, it's ice hockey.
That's it.
Yes, it is.
And Alma's going to bring up her puck, bring up her screen. And give it a second. It usually takes a moment there. And now when you look at that, and you can see there's a folder. There's the folder I've just shared with Alma, Kappa KLA 2013. So there it is. But the thing I want Alma to do is I want that to be convenient for her. So I want her to drag that into her My Drive. So watch what she does. In fact, it might be easier. Yeah, you can do it that way and just drag and drop it, right? Like
so
that.
I can do that.
Do that. The other way to do it is to select the folder. Select the folder. And click the button, Add to My Drive. Okay, you don't have access to it. All right, just bear with me for a second. That's because the folder that's inside it.
It's the Australian correct.
Yeah, okay, what I'll do is I will move that out and put it there. Yep, okay. Okay, now Alma, why don't you try just refreshing your screen and click that, and now you can say Add to My Drive. Sorry, that was my little glitch there. All right, so now that she's added it to her drive, now remember, this folder structure still belongs to me. I created it, I own it, so Alma can't actually delete it, and given that she's a viewer, she can't change anything. So for instance, and you can't share it with anyone. So Alma, try and delete one of the folders there. So click on, say, the dance folder, and try and delete it and see what happens. You'll say, was not removed, permission denied, right? Because she's only a viewer. If you're a KLA coordinator or setting up a folder for people, that's generally the way you want this set up because you don't want people to necessarily play around with that folder structure. But what if I want Alma to be able to add things into a folder or control a folder? Like, for instance, Alma is my visual arts teacher. I want her to be able to control the visual arts folder, add more people to it, add documents to it, etc. Maybe change its structure. Well, what I can do, and I'm going to go back to my screen now.
She doesn't know enough about visual arts.
Alma doesn't know enough about visual arts.
Sorry.
Well, we'll see about that.
Adding to Jess.
All right. So just bringing up my screen here. So what I can do is I'll just open up the folder structure here. You can see I've got this visual arts folder, Visual Arts 2013, which is this one over here. If I want to give Alma editing access to this so that she can completely control this, well, I can go to the Share menu and share this again. And this time, instead of making Alma a viewer, I can make her an editor and click Save Changes. And what that does is that flows down into all of the folders underneath that. So now Alma is an editor. For instance, if I look at this folder here, the 10VA, and click Share, I can see that Alma is, again, she's an editor, right? So the permission that I gave her flows through. It flows down the chain, if you like, down the folder hierarchy structure.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can, Catherine.
Only because this is a mistake I was making and
Yep.
didn't realise it. So what that does now, it gives Alma all permission for all of those subfolders, but not the ones above.
That's exactly right. So Alma if she tries to delete that visual arts folder, she won't be able to do it. Why? Because she only has view access to the Kappa folder, which encloses it. I'll say that again. She can't, even though she can edit the folder, the contents of that folder, she can't remove it because she doesn't have editing access to the folder which encloses it, which is this Kappa KLA 2013 folder. Okay?
So the reverse of that was when I was trying to share that, instead of sharing Alma with that subfolder, I shared her with the big folder and allowed her permission to everything.
Yeah.
So it's just important to know what is confidential you don't want to share and have editing rights to, because the folder at the top is the boss of all the folders. That's
Correct.
how I sort of say it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. So, Pete.
No,
question?
no, it's just...
As Peter
Go
will
on.
know.
Okay. So look, we're getting close to quarter. We're getting close to 1:45. So I'm conscious that people need to go. So the last thing I'm just going to show you is I'll go into the visual arts folder again. I'll go into that Year 7 visual arts, and there's a couple of folders there. Sometimes you want to give permission to a particular folder or a document. So say I look at this one. You may want to change the ownership of a particular document. So for instance, say I wanted to make Alma the owner of that document. Well, I can do that. I can go to edit and say is owner. But watch what happens. If I go is owner, now I become an editor, right? I can go back and become the owner again. But if you change a document as the owner, which means that Alma has complete control over it, she can delete it if she wants, right? It's like she created it. Then you can do that within the sharing setting. The other thing that I'll just cancel that. The other thing that you may want to do, Alma.
You can't change that back
once you've saved it as an owner.
If you've made someone an owner, it's not like sites where you can have multiple owners.
That's right. So you need to be careful when you're making someone an owner. Now, last thing, every school has been given an account called a resource account. So think about this. You've got a number of documents within Google Drive that are corporately owned. That is, they're if you like, owned by the school. Maybe they're policy documents or things like that. You can make this resource account the owner of those documents. So, for instance, at St Clare's, we've got STCLARE, St Clare. Actually, we won't use St Clare's. We'll use DLS Caringbah resource. And there it is there, DLSL Caringbah resource. So that's that resource account, and I can make that resource account an editor. So if I share and save it, and then if I want to, I can then change that resource account to be the owner. But only do that if you definitely want them to be the owner. It's okay for them to be the editor. If you do make them the owner, if you want to change anything, you'll need to log in as that DLSL resource account. So that way, this resource user has access to all of those documents. Click done. So, folks, just back to the slides, just to finish that off. So we talked about folders, we talked about permissions, we talked about this resource account. If you want to understand more about sharing folders and files, about setting up these permissions, then use some of the resources that are on that slide deck. All right, folks, well, that's about it. I hope that was useful, even though we didn't really hear from you. Does anybody want to say anything to finish off? Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Well, thank you. It would have been nice to have heard from you, though.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
All right.
Thanks, Anna, for presenting.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Anna.
thank you very much, Anna. And that's the last one for this term. We'll see you all again next term, where we'll be running some more of these CloudShare support sessions.